My name is Randy Reddick, and currently I am the Journalism Department Chairman.
My name is Steve Peterson. I am a graduate student in the Master's Program of the Mass Communications.
Coy Callison, I'm the Associate Dean for Graduate Studies in Mass Communications.
MassCom has actually offered several different study abroad trips. The one that I was involved with this spring was a trip to London focusing on global communications and specifically on Britain's place in the global community.
For the May semester, the MassCom was doing a program in London, and I got involved because Dr. Callison had sent out an email request notifying students of the program.
There was about 22 students, and then additionally there was 3 graduate students that went with us, and we went specifically to London, but then a group of us went over to London, to Paris, and then I went up to Scotland by myself after it was over.
It was a class, it was 2 classes, and the classes were, one was a journalism class, one was a public relations class.
You know, we didn't do a lot of what I'd call traditional instruction. We let the experience, provide the instruction. So we were more wranglers of the students and coordinators of the travel and moving around in the city. But for the most part, there was some discussion, I guess, and some preparation every morning for who we were going to meet for the day. But it was a great experience for me to see students, get to experience the culture there and a new setting. But in terms of what I would consider lecturing, was very, very little of that.
It was a great learning experience. I think it is important for students to really increase their worldview with the impact of globalization and this idea of intercultural integration.
It'd be hard for me to recall all of them off the top of my head. We visited Edelman, which is one of the largest PR firms in the world. Their London office is one of their biggest offices there. They really put on a show for us. They had a preparation made in terms of presentations. They had several speakers come in, and it blew the students away to see not only how similar public relations would be done overseas, but additionally to see the small differences that you would look at when you were communicating to a more global audience or an audience that didn't share our culture exactly. And so the students, I think, were blown away, gave them a chance to realize that their degree could provide them opportunities outside of their context here in the United States or in Texas, whatever it may be. So I think they came back with a sense of, that the world was their oyster to some extent, as opposed to the small setting that's here in the United States.
We visited the digs of Edelman, which is a large global public relations agency. We visited the facilities of Thomson Reuters, which is a large global news and information organization.
I wouldn't say any one of those in particular, but the experience as a singularity was that your preparation here at Texas Tech has put you in a position to work globally. And I don't think the students had ever thought about that. I know as an undergrad, it never crossed my mind that I would have a job outside of the region I was, did my undergrad studies in. And I'd like to have had this experience when I was an undergrad to realize that I was prepared to be more of a global communications scholar, expert, whatever it may be. And I think that experience in itself, every night we'd huddle around after we had gone on these expeditions, if you want to call it that, and we'd huddle around in some local pub or some local venue. And the chatter among the students of just not only how interesting the day had been, but how now they were considering that they could do jobs overseas or that they might actually be able to work in that context at some point. It was really exciting, like I said, every evening to hear them walk their way back through that, and this excitement in their voice was a very neat experience.
My selfish objectives were really to share my passion for European culture, specifically British culture, and London. London happens to be my favorite large city in the world. To share those with with our students, in the hopes that some of that might have rubbed off on them.
In terms of what I expected, I had never been over there myself, and so I was hoping for myself, somewhat of an enlightening, just a shift in what I understood about how the world worked. And I know I got that. I think the students got that. But there was no way to really prepare them for that. There was no really way to really lecture that up. We did quite a bit of groundwork before we went over there, more or less making people familiar with how the media works abroad, especially in the London media. But also we spent some time just talking about how do you function in that environment, what's expected of a citizen abroad, and what's expected of a Texas Tech student abroad, so that we can maintain the integrity of our brand of Texas Tech and the college. And so in terms of what they took away, I think they all took away this idea that the world's a smaller place than they might have thought. But in terms of education-wise, I think that, as typical with these type of experiences, the students begin to realize that what they've learned in classes and the faculty, they've been more on par than what they thought.
We had plenty of free time in the evenings to go out and explore London, and then the second weekend we were there, it was an open schedule. Half the students had signed up ahead of time to go to Paris, and other students that didn't want to go on that trip had time to explore on their own. I went down to Dover, which is on the southeastern coast, and I took the ferry across the English Channel to go over to Calais, and that was really interesting for me to just do the channel crossing via ferry and to just explore the coastal town of Calais in France.
I'd love to do it again. I'd feel much more comfortable there now. I've got a sense of how the underground works, and I've got a sense of the boroughs in London, and I was very nervous for the first couple of days that I would get off somewhere and that I would be lost, and that I would not make my way back to the hotel. And after a couple of days, I got a better sense of that. So I think I'd be a better leader, instructor the next time over there. But in terms of student opportunity, I think it's one of the neatest things a student can do.
Oh, I'd absolutely do it again. As I mentioned before, it was an opportunity to really expand my worldview and to see the same field that I'm studying here in the States, just from the perspective of the Britons.
Outside of what you learn in the classroom, there is this greater experience that you gather from being in college, and this opportunity that's provided by being a college student of going abroad, I don't think it can be replaced. You can't read about it in a book. You can't watch a DVD on the culture of public relations or journalism in London until you go over there and get your hands wet and eat little fish and chips and drink a few ales and walk your way through it. So, neat experience.